Pete and Trent back from Mountain Madness with a dirty bike. So time for a new chain and sprockets.
A lot of people say, oh, you know, it's just the chain that's buggered. If you put a new chain on the old sprockets, you'll find the sprockets will be a little bit worn, and they will force the chain to start wearing prematurely. And the same if you put a new sprocket on with the old chain will wear the sprockets prematurely. So ideally you want to change all the chains and sprockets all at the same time. A good way to tell if your chain is getting worn, grab it and make it tight, take all the slack out of it. And if you grab the back here, you can see it's still able to be moved off the sprocket.
Yeah.
So what that does, when the bike's accelerating, the chain will lift off the sprocket and sit on the tooth, top of the tooth.
Right.
And that, after a while, you've probably all seen sprockets with the teeth all bent over like a shark's fin.
Right.
That's why, because the chain wears and just sits on the top of the tooth.
Should that normally be really snug at the back there?
Yeah.
Like,
if you grab it really tight, you shouldn't even be able to move that at all. It should be stuck in there very tight.
so what's the first step now towards replacing the chain? Order a new chain and sprockets.
Yeah, I guess ideally.
One side plate equals one link. Is that correct?
Yes. So here's one link, and here's the second link. But in between those two is a third link and behind. So what we normally do when you calculate how long your chain is, count how many side plates you've got, starting from one, make a mark on it, and then count around. And when you get back to this one, if you've got 56 side plates, double that number, so you'd have 112, and that's how many links the chain is, 112.
Right.
And that would include the joining link. You know, if it's a dirt bike, you put a bigger sprocket on the rear and a smaller on the front, and you're not sure what size, then yes, you can get a longer chain and just feed it onto the bike and then cut the links off that you don't need. Normally what I would do is replace the front sprocket first. While the old chain is still on there, it gives you a lot of, because it's old and worn out, it gives you a lot of room to actually get the sprocket off. On this bike it's not so easy because it's got this chain
Case saver.
Yeah, exactly right, case saver. The only way we're going to get the front sprocket off on this is to actually remove the chain completely.
Right. And the case saver is there, isn't it, in case the chain breaks at some stage. Running around, you can see it running around the top of the sprocket. So the chain will naturally bunch up at the front and instantaneously punch a hole in the crankcase unless there's something there to stop it.
Yeah.
This chain as well is riveted, isn't it? Whereas some chains on smaller bikes, you have a master link, we call it, don't we? Where there's sort of a butterfly clip.
You can see this here is a rivet link.
Right.
You can see it's slightly, the pins are slightly different.
They're hollowed out.
They're slightly hollowed out. That's so you can peen them over. Once you get the side plate on, you can peen it over so that the side plate can't come off again. Obviously, if you've got a split link or the one with the little clip, nice and easy, just flip the clip off, take the side plate off, and take the join link out. With these ones here that are riveted together, it's a little bit more difficult. So what we tend to use is the trusty angle grinder.
Right.
Or a proper chain breaking tool will do it as well. If you do have a butterfly clip, you'll notice that one end is closed and the other end is open. You always have the closed end facing towards the front of the bike, or the way the chain is travelling.
Right.
Basically, if you do that, if a stone or something hits it, it's not going to knock it off. It's going to like force it back into position. If you have the open end facing forward and a stone hits it, it's going to knock it off. Right. The side plate will fall off, and then bing, you've got a broken chain. Yeah. And you're stuck in the middle of nowhere.
Yes, I've had that happen. So we're going to spark up the angle grinder.
Yep.
I'll plug it in.
I normally get a screwdriver or a cold chisel and just stick it down between the plate and the link, and just knock it there, and you'll see the side plate will start to come off.
There's a cold chisel here somewhere.
Yeah, there's one here that's too blunt.
Hey? No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect.
Let's sharpen it a bit. Yeah. So we're just going to stick that between the side plate and the inner link.
Yep.
can see it's just starting to, you can see the indent just forming there where the plate is coming off.
Here we go.
Just like that.
O-rings under there.
Now these look like X-rings. You can see normally an O-ring is round, like if you cut it, the cross section would be just like an O. But these are a lot flatter, and if you did a cross section of this, it would look like an X. It gives more sealing surface.
Yeah.
Whereas an O-ring would just be right around the edge. This has got a couple of surfaces to seal. So.
Right. Because that's one thing I didn't realise. You think O-rings would give you less friction because you haven't got metal on metal contact, but actually they create more friction, don't they?
Yeah, you can imagine all the O-rings inside that chain, 2 on every pin. There's a lot of friction there, especially if you don't oil it as well. And that can sap horsepower from your bike. You'll often find that motocross riders will use non-O-ring chains because they want, they want to use the maximum amount of power they can get from the bike.
So metal sliding on metal, actually, you get less friction that way.
Yeah.
Oh, that came out easy.
What you could normally do is you could hook the new chain on here and just feed it round as you pull the old one. The new one would feed on. But we can't do that because we can't get the front sprocket off with the chain in place.
Right.
So we're going to have to take it off.
I know, so we're looking at where it's spat the rollers out. You can see, there's a roller, no roller, just a pin. You can see the different diameter there. I've had chains on bikes in the past that have stretched on sort of one side and not the other.
There's actually a bit of discussion about that as well, where the chains actually stretch. Personally, I don't think they do. I think they wear out. That's why they get longer. It's because they wear out. They don't actually stretch.
Right. What do you mean?
Well, the pins inside the chain start to wear out, and the rollers start to wear out, and everything as it wears out gives a little bit more play, so it just gets longer and longer.
Right.
It doesn't actually stretch, and steel doesn't stretch very well. It tends to break. You may have seen some people when they're testing how worn a chain is, they pick it up and they hold it sideways and go, oh, look at that, oh, it's really worn because it bends in a half circle. Well, that's not normally how you'd test whether a chain is worn. What you'd normally do is put it on the ground like that, and you can see here, see the amount of movement just by pushing it in and out. It's the pins that are worn inside the rollers.
Right.
That's why the chain is longer, and that's why it's worn out, is because all the pins are worn. The reason we have O-ring chains or X-ring chains, when they build the chain in the factory, they fill it all full of grease inside the rollers and the pins, and they put an O-ring or an X-ring each side of it, and that stops the grease, A, stops the grease coming out, and B, stops water and shit going inside. Now obviously you need to lubricate the chain, otherwise the O-rings and the X-rings, if they're not lubricated, as it's going around the sprocket, it's trying to turn, the links are trying to turn, and the O-ring or the X-ring
just being masticated.
If it's dry, it's just stretching and twisting it. If it's lubricated, it'll just slide nicely, because that's what rubber and oil does. It just slides smoothly and nicely. So it's always very important to lubricate lubricate any chain, but especially important on a O-ring chain. And
cleaning, not petrol.
No, preferably not petrol.
Some people say kerosene's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know. I would just wipe off any excess grit with a rag or something like that. Maybe some hot soapy water if it's really bad, and then just give it a decent oil up again.
What about pressure washers around chains? Are they the death of chains?
Well, when we used to ride enduros and stuff, your bike would be filthy afterwards, and we just spray it with the pressure blaster and then oil it up afterwards. It's not ideal because you can, with a pressure washer, it can force water in past the O-rings.
Just don't sit there with the press just on one spot of the chain, just hammering it with the pressure washer.
I would
be sensible.
Maybe stand out here somewhere with the pressure washer, hitting the chain here and just spinning the wheels. So it's just washing the mud and stuff off.
Okay.
And then make sure you lube it up afterwards.